Harbor Commission meeting in order. And I would like to ask for a roll call.
Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present tonight, with the exception of Commissioner Williams, who has an excused absence.
Thank you. I would like to ask if Commissioner Young would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Please rise, stand, and join me to the salute of the flag. Place your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. This is a time when we open up for public comments, and they're invited on non-agenda items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes before speaking. We invite, but do not require you to state your name for the record. The Harbor Commission does have the discretion to extend or shorten the speaker's time limit on agenda or non-agenda items, provided the time limit adjustment is applied equally to all speakers. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones off or set them in the silent mode.
Good evening, Adam Leverins. I have page 1 of these slides. There we go. At the March 11 meeting, there was an item to propose elimination of mooring length adjustment process. There are some quotes that I transcribed from the video of that meeting. And Chair Beer had said, quote, "Newport Harbor is a fully built-out harbor. There is no additional water area to expand into, so increasing mooring lengths effectively reallocates limited public water space to individual permittees. Longer mooring increases navigational risk. Public access to the harbor is declining. Expanded moorings exponentially reduce available water area for other harbor users, including kayaks, paddleboarders, rowing shells, and other human-powered craft. Incremental expansions create long-term crowding. Granting length increases to some permittees effectively grants additional public water spaces not available to others," close quote. There's a link on there to the video on YouTube and the time. At the last meeting, I observed that those statements could apply to residential pier extensions. The NMA had put in a request for flexibility for de minimis mooring extensions. And Chair Beer closed public comments and clarified that private piers are governed by established project lines, and noted that moorings present different regulatory considerations. As I walked in this evening, I see Chair Beer has submitted minutes that say some things that I'll have to watch the video and see if they were actually said. Next slide, please. The project line that I know was mentioned at the last meeting is, I verified this with Mr. Miller, that's the line that the Army Corps is responsible for dredging to. So from project line on one side of the harbor, project line on the other side of the harbor. It's not a build-out or a construction line. The pier head line is the supposed build-out or construction line. Next slide, please. These lines are federally designated, and the pier head is a legal boundary beyond which artificial structures may not be built. And the Title 33 U.S. Code of Regulations says similar. The city has codified where it can violate federal regulations, and some of this goes back to the docks and such, predate some of these things. But to argue that moorings are reducing space and then not address docks is a problem. And then the final slide, Beacon Bay, you guys approved last year. Not only are the docks well beyond the pier head line, dock number 3 is beyond the project line. They also have a work dock that's going to be 6 or 7 feet further out than it is now. I was invited to watch the Christmas boat parade in Beacon Bay last year, and it was like you could reach out and touch them. And I just, the equitability of saying, oh boy, moorings are a mess, no more extensions, and then the docks, and then the boats can be half a beam length beyond the docks. The lack of fairness and applying the same standards is really creates ill will and conflict, and I just hope to see better in the future. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chair. My name is Shaylee Hilkema, and I'm a Newport mooring permit holder. The City of Newport Beach practices financial favoritism which benefits preferred Tidelands users. Those of us with general public mooring permits aren't the chosen ones. For decades, the city has perpetrated financial and regulatory discrimination against us, and we often endured the insecurity that comes with the threat of having our mooring permits revoked and our fees increased excessively. The city was determined to raise onshore moorings by 1,000%, and it currently wants to raise offshore moorings 300 to 500%. Past Harbor Commission Chair and current board member of the Newport Harbor Foundation, Bill Skip Kinney, reminds us that the City of Newport Beach is obligated to manage the public tidelands and trust for the people of California wherever private parties use or occupy these public tidelands. What he fails to mention in his article titled Update the Moorings that can be found at the Foundation's website is that mooring permit holders already pay much higher fees than like user groups, including those that are commercial and for-profit. Mr. Kinney also failed to mention that those with residential pier permits pay nothing to store their boats at their private docks. They pay a fraction of the fees we pay for much larger footprints on the public tidelands. They enjoy exclusive use rights. The city allows them to rent dock space for their private gain, which can amount to many thousands of dollars of profit per year, and the city hasn't threatened to revoke their permits. Mr. Kinney is correct when he writes that the NMA has been very active whenever matters pertaining to moorings arise, and many other concerned mooring permit holders have spoken at meetings and written letters to policymakers. I do, however, want to clarify for the record that in regard to user fees, the issue isn't that residential pier rates are too low, it's that mooring fees are too high. It is obvious that private docks and single-point yacht club moorings with transport services are far better and more convenient than our difficult-to-access moorings. General public mooring permit holders don't need to be continually gaslighted on this issue. We also don't want to be the convenient scapegoat when the city and others want to explain to the residential pier permit holders why fees must be raised. We all need to store our boats when they're not in use. With all that's been said about and legislated in support of recreational boating and access to public tidelands, we'd appreciate being treated fairly by Newport Beach policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comments this evening? Okay, I would like to point out at the last Harbor Commission meeting, there was a public comment brought by an individual who indicated that he would be returning to reiterate his concerns. So I wanted to address that publicly because it related to an allegation stemming from a complaint from a Grand Canal resident that their neighbor had installed 3 moorings in addition to a pier platform. And when the individual who was at the meeting last month indicated, he claimed that all the properties fronting the Grand Canal were out of compliance. So staff had done a little bit of research, communicated with our harbor master, and as it turns out, the gentleman that made that allegation is actually the only property that had essentially 3 moorings plus 1 pier platform. But to his point, some 70% of the Grand Canal residents are out of compliance technically per the code. The code states that they're only allowed to have, I believe it's 1 pier or 2 moorings. Is that correct? That's correct. So those are the actual choices. But in reality, it turns out that there's, of the 79 properties, there's 23 that are compliant. There's 35 that have a seawall platform and 1 mooring, and there's 20 that have a seawall platform and 2 moorings. and the individual brought this up, had a seawall platform and 3 moorings. He subsequently brought that to be compliant, which I know City and Harbor Department certainly appreciates. But what I wanted to do was, under the circumstances and from discussions I've had with the Harbor Department, Harbor Master, I would like to publicly request that staff review an amendment to the municipal code that would allow for either 1 platform and 1 mooring, or 2 moorings. This would bring 59 of the 79 in compliance, or about 75%. So with that, any of the commissioners have any comments, please feel free to add them at this time.
They still have to stay within the boundaries of their property line. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, and they also have to meet the requirements for the construction of the pier platform in the mooring.
And I'm sorry, I just quickly want to interrupt. We're skipping over to item number 9, which I feel like we are. We can do that, but if we want to agendize it for a future discussion, then that's the only thing that we can consider right now. We can't really discuss the item because it hasn't been agendized. So right now, I guess the chair has brought an item that he wishes to be considered. If you guys want to talk about that at a future item, then you guys can vote on that.
That's fair. During the, later in the session.
I mean, since you guys are doing it now, I mean, you guys can just do it now if you like.
I was going to raise a point of order. You can't talk about this without agendizing.
Yeah, well, first thing is we'll bring it back to the commission to discuss if that's still appropriate. If not, we can push it off to a later date and re-agendize it.
Well, yeah, so let's just wait for item number 9 to come back when we're talking about matters which commissioners would like to be placed on future.
Right, that would be the time to bring it
and
up.
then you guys can vote on it, on whether you want to bring it as an agendized item.
That's fine.
To discuss it. Okay.
We'll do that. Like I said, the individual that was here was strongly asserting that he was going to be here at this next meeting, and almost every subsequent meeting until something occurred, so we took the steps to try and accommodate him. So we'll leave it at that and move it to the end of the session. So with ending public comments, we'll move on to approval of the minutes, which is item 5 this evening. So we have draft minutes of the March 11th Harbor Commission regular meeting. There were comments submitted by both myself and Vice Chair Marston, and I'd like to know if any commissioners have anything to add to those comments. I do not. Seeing none, I'll open it to public comments. Seeing none, I will ask if there's a motion to approve the March 11th, 2026 minutes with the changes from both myself and Vice Chair Marston.
So moved.
Second.
Go to vote.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to current business, item 6.1 is a resolution adopting the recommended revisions to the City of Newport Beach Municipal Code. At the February 11th, 2026 Harbor Commission meeting, commissioners agreed to recommendations that resulted from the subcommittee responsible for the current Harbor Commission objective number 1 to conduct an annual review of Title 17 of the City of Newport Beach Municipal Code, and then directed staff to return with a resolution reflecting the recommended changes. I'll move to staff to continue or provide a report.
We just have a brief PowerPoint presentation to explain some minor changes to the resolution that were posted after the resolution and staff report were posted I apologize. Good afternoon, Chair Beer, members of the Harbor Commission, Matt Costa, Deputy Harbor Master. We do have a brief presentation again, but it's only to explain that there were some minor changes to the resolution just wanted to explain what was removed from the resolution, what was added to the resolution, and then we were able to answer any questions. For the revisions, we removed a change to 1725.020, specifically related, there was a word about can't loan a mooring out, and we removed that change. And we removed all changes that were added to 1760.040. And the reason for these changes is because the city is currently reviewing mooring and residential pier rates, yacht club mooring fill rates, the mooring transfer program, the liveaboard program, and the review is in response to the State Lands Commission report on the city's island management. And we felt it would be appropriate to let the review play out rather than make changes to anything that could impact the mooring permit program. And it seemed better for that review to be complete rather than confuse people as the review starts. We added subsections B and C to the Marine Activities Permit Program, and these two sections were widely supported by the members of the charter community. So subsection B states that any person or entity engaging in commercial activity that advertises, lists, or offers a vessel for rent or charter in the city, including on any charter and boat rental or hosting platforms or social media platforms, shall prominently display the valid city-issued marine activities permit number within the body of every such advertisement, marketing materials, or listing. Right now, it takes the staff a lot of time to go through those listings. Sometimes the boats are hard to tell which ones have a permit, which ones don't, and so by having the permit number, it will help staff with identifying who has a permit and who doesn't. Then we added subsection C, which states the harbor master shall have the authority to issue and serve administrative subpoenas to the permit holder, agent, charter and boat rental hosting platforms, social media platform, or any person or entity facilitating vessel charters and rentals as necessary, to obtain specific information regarding charter listings located in the city, including but not limited to the names of the persons responsible for each such listing, the address of each such listing, the length of rental for each such listing, and the price paid for each listing to determine whether the listing complies with this chapter. Any subpoena issued pursuant to this section shall not require the production of information sooner than 30 days from the date of service. A person that has been served with an administrative subpoena may seek judicial review during that 30-day period. Failure to respond to an administrative subpoena in accordance with the terms set forth therein shall be punishable, and the city may file a judicial action to compel compliance with the subpoena. These two additions mirror Newport Beach Municipal Code 595055, which is the city's short-term lodging ordinance. The Landside Code Enforcement Division uses this section with short platforms that people utilize to offer their boats for their homes, for short-term rentals. And so it's been very successful with the Landside, and so we are borrowing that language and implementing it into our harbor code.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The judicial review, where is that done?
So Commissioner Scully, I can answer that. That would be filed with the local court that has jurisdiction. So typically that's the central court. We got Central Superior Court in Santa Ana.
And they can do that within 30 days?
Yes. So if they do not want to comply with the subpoena, then they can challenge the subpoena.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the Harbor Commission? Commissioners?
Real quick question for you guys on, just because you mentioned short-term rentals on land-based, and you see these pop up, hey, you can rent it like an Airbnb, come stay on this boat for 2 to 3 days. Is that within the tentacles of things we want to discuss or capture, or I've seen a couple Airbnb slots, hey, you can be in, outside of the cannery and stay 2 nights on this 65-foot, yacht fisher. How do we draw those two things together? Short-term rentals for the city, and then what falls under the harbor and under the verbiage that you guys have outlined here?
So the city short-term lodging ordinance only allows for short-term lodging in very designated residential zones. It does not allow for it within the harbor, and as such, we do not allow for short-term lodging within, or short-term rentals within the harbor itself. We will, on occasion, go through the local sites that advertise short-term lodging on vessels. Sometimes they pop up and come back down, but we do look like at Airbnb is one, VRBO is another one, where you occasionally find like a section that talks about like staying on a boat. That's where we'll look, and we will notify the owners that that's not allowed in the harbor.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission? Vice Chair? Okay, any public comments?
Just occurs to me, what would be the difference of allowing a residential pier permit holder to let somebody come in with their boat for 2 nights? I mean, if they're allowed to rent, then they could probably rent for 2 nights, is my guess. It just seems, anyway, just a question.
Thank you.
Adam Livens again, and I'm possibly confused. Like, Matt, what you just went through, are the other things still under consideration as far as not cutting bait on piers and docks and things like that? Are they still in the agenda materials?
Please address your comments to the commission. If they want questions answered, they will ask.
Thank you, Paul. What Matt just went over is one part of what we had talked about at the stakeholder meeting back in November, I think, and at the last meeting. If the rest of the stuff isn't up for consideration, I don't need to yammer on about it, but it was in the agenda material, so share beer. Should I yammer on?
Again, it's up to you. It's, you can make whatever public comments you like.
I've mentioned, you've heard all numerous times from me about restrooms. And there's clearly an interest on all of our parts to not have human waste in the harbor or around the harbor. And
I will have to clarify that what you're discussing is not related to the recommendations and changes that were just discussed at this agenda item to adopt the resolution, which has been previously discussed. So unless it relates to this agendized item, you would have to discuss it only during public comments.
Well, again, there's a red line version and a clean version within the agenda materials that have the subject matter I'm discussing right now, but Mr. Cozyline did not put it up on the screen. So I'm confused. Are you only voting on what Mr. Cozyline put on the screen, or are you voting on all the materials contained within the agenda?
Within the resolution that's inside the agenda, yes. So if you want to comment on that, please proceed. If not, then you shouldn't.
Okay, I will do further research, and I apologize.
No problem. Any additional public comments? Seeing none, is there any action to approve the staff recommendation to adopt Harbor Commission Resolution HC 2026-1, reflecting recommended revisions to the City of Newport Beach Municipal Code? I would like to make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Okay, go to vote.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We move on to item 6.2, review and discuss proposed additions to mooring specifications and inspection requirements for helical anchor and dynamic tackle systems. Back in November of 2024, the Harbor Commission recommended a pilot program to convert 3 city-owned moorings in the Seafield from traditional anchors to helical systems. The tests have proved successful, and the city now wishes to update the approved mooring specifications and inspection requirements to include the helical anchor and dynamic tackle systems for other mooring permittees who are interested in converting to this environmentally friendly and efficient mooring system. I will revert to our harbor master if you'd like to provide a report on this. That'd be great.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chair Beer. I am Paul Link, your harbor master. We get that PowerPoint presentation flipped up for them to see. There's a robust staff report which includes a lot of technical information that was provided by a consultant/engineer who has been implicit with us as we set about the 6 test sites for the helical anchor and dynamic tackle systems. This is a brief report just giving you an update on that and then asking for your direction to move forward with potential revisions to the mooring specifications that would allow for these systems, as well as the inspection requirements that are called out in the city code, as well as on the mooring permits. Madison Inn Police, the mooring permit technician, is the person really most responsible for this, but she could not be here this evening. So I've read the staff report and I'm giving this presentation. Whatever direction you give me, I would pass on to her, and she will come back with whatever you guys were at to be done here. With that, a brief history and some pretty pictures. These are 2 diagrams of the traditional versus helical and dynamic mooring system. The traditional mooring system is comprised of an anchor weight which sits on the sea floor, 2 styles of chain, both bottom chain, which is larger, and top chain, which is smaller. The bottom chain does at times rest on the sea floor intentionally as part of the shock absorbing system. There is a float at the surface of the water and then pennants that go from the top of the float to the vessel. Different mooring configurations from there are the responsibility of the mooring permittee. On the right-hand side is the diagram of the similar system or equivalent system in the helical or using helical anchors and the dynamic mooring tackle. In that system, you have a helical anchor which is driven into the sea floor. There is bottom chain which is connected to the dynamic tackle, which is elastic in nature. The same mooring float and the same mooring pennants, and then the rest of the gear associated with the boat. The advantage in the helical and dynamic arrangement on the right is that there's a substantial reduction in fill, which is the amount of seafloor taken up by the system, and chain scarring of the seafloor. So you'll notice that nothing rests on the seafloor, and the penetration of the seafloor, the consumption of seafloor in the helical anchor system is substantially smaller than in traditional anchor. Here are some actual examples of the 6 test sites that were swapped out. In this particular example, this is just 2,200 pounds of anchor weights that were lifted for this one particular mooring. It consisted of 2 train wheels, which are in the left-hand image, and then a bucket, literally a bucket of chain that was used to supplement those train wheels to make the 2,200 pound minimum requirement for that. And you'll notice the chain, that's a substantial bucket. It's like a 55-gallon trash can full of chain, etc. So that mooring is a private mooring that was converted at the owner's expense. These 2 moorings belong to the city of Newport Beach, and they were also converted as part of this pilot test. Mooring C32 on the left and C34 on the right, and you see that the weights that have been used are these substantial I'm sorry, I can't come up with the word, but anyway, it's a whole bunch of chain piled together with a train wheel on top of it. So it consumes a huge amount of square footage or square meterage on the seafloor, and is not particularly friendly to the seafloor and all that's swimming around and growing around it. So those 2 giant mooring weights and their components at the other ends of those moorings have been replaced with this helical anchor system. Okay, in order for you to direct that the specifications for moorings be revised, you can do that. So according to 172520, anchorage berthing and mooring regulations, section J specifies that the mooring specifications are your responsibility. That is the Harbor Commission's responsibility to direct. You can make modifications to that without a code change and without setting anything for further review. To revise the inspection requirements associated with these mooring systems, you would have to make recommendations and approve a resolution that would be forwarded to council, and that may include, at the engineer's recommendation, additional definitions in the code for helical anchor systems and dynamic mooring tackle systems, testing requirements, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, and then revised inspection timing specifically, and then the use of sacrificial anodes as part of the inspection requirement. So once again, you guys can revise, direct that the mooring specifications be revised, and your word happens. We carry out whatever you say. But if you want to change the inspection requirements and timing, you will need to craft language or language and a resolution. So here are the existing mooring specifications. Right now they're contained in two different charts. One for onshore moorings is at the bottom, and then all of the offshore mooring sizes are in the top chart. The recommendation includes combining those into one single chart, and then adding 4 columns specific to the helical anchor tackle and helical anchors, the helical anchors specifically themselves, and then the dynamic tackle. So we've added, and what you see in the 4 columns to the right are in purple, that's what's proposed to be added. The helical anchor shaft size, the number of plates, or the number of plates depending on the mooring size, the specific holding strength of the anchor, and then the specific mooring load limit, like what the tackle can endure for the dynamic systems. And then the notes at the bottom are also enhanced to reflect the existence or addition of of these particular mooring anchor systems with their dynamic tackle. Everything else stays the same, so if a mooring permittee is compliant today with the specifications for traditional weights and anchors, that's fine. They can continue to comply with that section. This is just an enhancement or addition to the specifications that's proposed. When it comes to the inspection requirements, here's how they read currently. Everybody has a 2-year cycle upon which they have to have the mooring lifted, inspected by a certified marine service provider, or they can do it themselves, but then they have to drag the harbor master out to inspect it with them. So it's a 2-year cycle. What's proposed is that 2-year cycle is enhanced. The 2-year cycle remains in place for anybody using the traditional anchor systems, but then for anybody using one of the helical anchors and dynamic tackle systems, they initially move to a 1-year inspection cycle. So upon initial installation, they have to have it inspected at the end of the first year, and then provided everything works as intended and there are no issues, then it moves to a 4-year inspection cycle with the inclusion of a sacrificial anode at the top of the mooring so that the condition of the anchor itself can be inspected without removal. So that's why I think that language all reads the way it does. One more note about the load testing. When the Seafield reconfiguration project was underway and we first conceived of this advancement in mooring tackle technology, the engineer included